Right, so what you're seeing behind me is a choo-choo train. Apparently, Kim Jong-un has a boyish obsession with trains because he's riding one for 20 hours through the Siberian wilderness to visit with Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because in 48 hours, it's going to become undeniable. It's going to be official all over the headlines, CNN, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. They'll give it some new name. I don't know, not the axis of evil. They'll give it some new name. A no limits military partnership confirmed. No more secrets. The gloves are off. North Korea is going to be providing the Russians likely with conventional munitions, and perhaps the Russians are going to assist the North Koreans with their nuclear ambitions, although I'm not sure how much help they need with that, considering their nuclear arsenal has grown substantially just in the last 2 years. So what we're seeing now is the dividing lines between East and West become far more solidified. It's become abundantly clear now that this is World War III, and we got a lot of data points to talk about, not a whole lot of high-level analysis to share with you in terms of my own meta-analyses I like to do. I don't just like to read the news, and some people just read articles, and sometimes they can provide some insights, but to me that's boring. You guys want to hear something new. Otherwise, you would just go to Twitter. You would go to other spaces to find this amalgamation of information. But I just got off the phone, not really the phone, the Starlink with my buddy, James Wesley Rawles, who we're going to have on the channel this weekend. And I got to say, that was tricky because this guy is off the grid. If you don't know who James Wesley Rawles is, he's like the OG of modern prepping, the godfather of prepping. He's written all kinds of books, and I can tell you right now, that Starlink connection was shoddy as hell because this guy's an enigma of sorts. He lives the life. It's very hard to become a renowned author in the way that he is and still remain incognito, off the grid. People don't even have pictures of this guy. They do from like years ago, but he's done a good job of just being a moving target and not disclosing even to the people in his immediate environment who he is. So he takes this stuff seriously, and he's being consulted on the regular by numerous high net worth individuals in the areas of finance, Silicon Valley, you name it, people with money who are preparing for when shit gets wild. And there's a lot of them right now. If you can't see what is going on around the world, and if you are waiting for it to be broadcast on the mainstream news, then you're just like the guy who, is waiting to be told what stock is going to blow next, like what stock is going to 10x. They're never going to advertise that on the news because, of course, the stock won't 10x then because everybody will know about it. So understand what's going on. Look with your own eyes. Here are some of the things that are happening to confirm that we are indeed in World War III, okay? Russia allegedly is about to mobilize 700,000 more men. The only dispute right now amongst Ukrainian intelligence officials is how they're going to do it. Are they going to continue to do it covertly, or are they going to make an overt mobilization announcement? There are concerns because this is an election season that they're not going to go the route of making it publicly known that there's a mobilization for concerns that Putin might slip in the polls a little bit. However, remember that in the United States anyways, and I'm not sure how it works in Russia, but there typically has never been a lame duck presidency during a hot wartime. And I can't see that happening in Russia. I think that if Putin was to call a general mobilization right now, he would have the support of a lot of his people simply because of all these attacks that have been happening on Russia. I don't think there'd be a whole lot of pushback. In fact, a lot of the anger towards Putin is that he's not prosecuting the war aggressively enough. This is why there was almost that coup, because the guy on the ground, Prigozhin, fighting the war in Bakhmut, did not see the greater strategy, which requires more patience. It requires a more high-level perspective that only the commander-in-chief of the Russian administration can actually see. So, We could very well see it come either way. It could be overt, could be covert. Either way, they're saying that there's 700,000 men who are about to be drafted, and we also have 46 Iskander missiles along the border of Ukraine. We're not sure exactly when, or at least I'm not sure when all those were sent there. I'm presuming that this has been gradual, that this is a buildup, that this didn't just happen overnight. What's important to note is that these Iskanders can deliver tactical nuclear weapons. So is this just a flex and to try to scare the Ukrainians against doing anything too rash, or is this actually just in preparation for what some people say is a grand Russian counter-offensive, which is going to be happening very soon? Either way, 46 potentially tactically nuclear Iskander missiles on the border with Ukraine, while the following is happening. The EU has now made a law that they can confiscate the property of Russian travelers who are currently in the EU. The EU is a big place. Basically, this is going to fuel xenophobia. At least that's what Russian travelers and Russians are concerned about. And the former president, Dmitry Medvedev, has basically said that he says a lot of wild, crazy things, but in some ways, you know, he doesn't say anything unless it's been approved by Vladimir Putin. It's good cop, bad cop, right? He serves a purpose. He's there to scare the world. Well, if you get rid of Putin, guess who's possibly going to be in charge? It's going to be the guy who talks about nuclear Armageddon every Tuesday. So he has basically said that if they do this, or if they continue doing this, that they should just suspend their diplomatic efforts there, pull their ambassadors, pull all the envoys from the country, and just watch them literally, and he said this, shit their pants, okay? So that's the situation that we are currently in right now. We also have confirmation that a German-made drone has landed on Russian soil for the first time. Understand how significant that is. We already have the Leopard tanks. Just today, they, in a roundabout way, confirmed with 100% absolute certainty that Ukraine will be getting Taurus missiles eventually. They're just not sure when. You have the Russians who are going to be installing this massive air defense network system thing, which is going to put the Russian nuclear forces on higher alert. So Germany is preparing to effectively go to war with Russia. But now that you have a German drone falling on Russian territory, you know, you can feel that World War II sentiment rising within Russian people, and it's only a matter of time before they demand that something be done. And now you have Polish military building up. Are they going to want to check them before they're able to fuel the U.S. military-industrial complex and line the pockets of all the fat cats and make them insurmountably wealthy? Time will tell. We have the largest NATO exercise ever planned, or at least since the Cold War, Operation Steadfast Defender 2024. Get this, 700 aircraft, 50 ships, and 40,000 troops to take place between Germany, Poland, and the Baltic states. All right? We have the USA on the fence still, but basically hinting that they're about to confirm the transfer of long-range ATACMS missiles with cluster bombs. That's the cherry on top right there. Depleted uranium rounds already in Ukraine, going to be used on the Abrams tanks. And you know what? The IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency chief, Grossi, I'm not sure what his first name is, it Rafael Grossi? Anyways, he basically says that, don't worry, you know, you could put it on your cereal, you know, you can give a little bit to the children, and they're stocking at Christmas time. Depleted uranium, perfectly okay, perfectly safe. And this is the guy that's telling us that everything is fine at the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. This is the unbiased source that we're supposed to believe, who is saying that, you know, the Russians are the ones who are primarily at fault for what's going on at that nuclear power plant. So right now we're at a point where anything can happen at that nuclear power plant. We can't trust the International Atomic Energy Agency chief with respect to, you know, this is the same people who are saying a lot of the stuff for the last 3 years. Understand these international agencies, who they are beholden to. It's clear that there's a bias there, and it's not in the favor and direction of Russia. Ukraine allegedly has only I think 30 days is the main estimate until it gets rainy, but up to 6 weeks, according to Sleepy Joe, to mount this counter-offensive before they're just going to have to put the brakes on things for another 6 months or so and try to arm up in the process. Yes, indeed, there has been an inordinate amount of activity in terms of Russian doomsday planes and emergency action messages in the past couple days. It's unknown as to whether or not that was an exercise. Right now, as the saying goes, there are no military exercises, only World War III disguises, and I do believe that what we're seeing is preparation for when things get really, really hot, if they're not already hot already. And behind the scenes, who knows what DEFCON level we are truly at. Again, they're never going to tell us what the DEFCON level is. That is classified, and that's something that people should understand at all times, is that if and when our nuclear forces are on a higher state of alert, they're not just going to broadcast that from the rooftops. Number one, it would cause an immense amount of panic, and they would only do so if it was a strategic in a deterrence sense, to deter the opposition from potentially doing something that might be provocative or conducting a first strike operation. Russia is confirmed to be building military bases along the Finnish border. They're building 3 very large buildings as we speak, so that can't be good. Poland is going to buy 500 HIMARS launchers. I'll say it again. These guys are like a gambler with a credit card, okay? And it looks like somebody be creeping outside my window. You better be careful, because we got an arsenal. I might not be as incognito as James Wesley Rawls, but I tell you, I ain't going down without a fight here, my friends. It's going to be the zombie apocalypse up in here, so you better not be the first one through the door. And I will say that I hope that most people are friendly, because I'm a charitable person. You do something for me, I'll do something for you. We can make things work, but if you come with bad intentions, don't be the first through the door. That's all I'll say. Anyways, getting back. It looks like they've dispersed, so it's all good in the hood, baby, baby. All right, so Romania has summoned the Russian ambassador because apparently there wasn't just one Russian drone that fell on Romanian territory, but there may have been others. So Romania is saying that you got some explaining to do. I guess we're going to see what comes of that. Is Russia going to start to relent on its attacks on those border regions? As I explained before, they can't really do this because they got to nip those supply lines in the bud. They got to plug that leak in the plan. The only way they can do that is if they go right to the source. Once it's inside Ukraine, you don't know where it is. Under the cover of night, they move it around here and there. So they got to nip it in the bud. So they're probably going to keep targeting these ports. Now you have the Royal Air Force who are going to be patrolling the Baltic. I mean, this is just insane to me. And just think about the insanity that I should just do a dedicated video of this topic. I should make this the title of the video, because how is it possible? Like, why didn't they do that in the first place? If the grain deal was such a big deal, why did they ever need the grain deal? If they were just going to enforce it ultimately using NATO warplanes, why do you need a grain deal brokered by Turkey at all? You know what I'm saying? So it really just starts to look like an excuse to get us into World War III. These guys are playing a game of nuclear chicken, my friends. And I know that the Russians aren't going to budge and swerve out of the way, because this is existential for them. And I'm not so sure that our leaders are smart enough to swerve out of the way if they're playing the game in the first place. So I guess we're going to see. It's only a few weeks now before we have that big civil defense emergency alert sent out in October. I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of the zombies will be temporarily brought out of their slumber for that one day when that alert gets sent, but they're going to quickly go back into La La Land for, start planning for Christmas and whatever, and forget that there's a war brewing, and they're just going to be like, people are going to freak out at first because they're going to remember, oh yeah, that nuclear war prospect thing that Nate's been talking about for the longest time. That raving lunatic Canadian prepper, yeah, him. He's always been talking about this nuclear war thing, and then they're going to remember that for a second or two when they get that message, and then they're just going to forget about it. And that's how it typically goes, right? Just remember, guys, you're not the apocalypse will not be televised. You know, Jill Scott Heron, the revolution will not be televised. It's not going to be broadcast. It's not going to be televised. So just understand that just like the stock market, they're not going to tell you on CNN what stock is going to 10x in the next couple years. And in the same way, they're not going to be explicit with respect to telling you when that final ultimate day is going to come, okay? You have to just connect the dots yourself. And the dots are currently saying that everybody is getting ready for a massive war. Why would Poland need 500 HIMARS launchers if supposedly the entire Russian military was held at bay with only 18 HIMARS launchers? Well, some people say it's 42. I really don't know the exact amount, but it ain't much. Why would you need 500? Think about that. Either the Russian military is truly not putting all of its troops into the fight, and Poland knows it, and NATO knows it, and they know they're going to need 10 times as many when Russia really fully mobilizes and commits to this fight, and all these inflated numbers that have been put out by the Ukrainians are proven completely false. Either they know that the Russians are going to be a force to be reckoned with and they're saving their primary military capability, as we've been saying all along, or they're just planning to go even further. And it's not just about Russia, it's about something more. We have another Minuteman missile launch planned for November. And we've already had 3 so far this year, which I believe is a couple more than is normal, but don't quote me on that. Shit's hitting the fan. Little Kim is heading out there to Moscow, and that's going to be big headlines in the coming days ahead. Apparently Kiev might declare war. And this sounds crazy, and this is just another one of those things that is crazy. It is crazy, and when you really look at it, Kiev knows that these annexed territories are, as much as they say they're a part of Ukraine, Crimea is a part of Ukraine. If that was the truth, why wouldn't you have already declared war against Russia? You're pussyfooting around because clearly you understand that maybe some of those grievances that the Russians have, it really just lends, and I'm not saying that they believe this, but it lends credibility to the idea that the Russians actually have something of substance behind their grievance, that these 4 annexed territories are potentially at least partially pro-Russian. Maybe not even a majority, but partially. Otherwise, you would have declared war on Russia long ago. But let's face it, if you are sending drones to Russia into Moscow on a daily basis, and these are being green-lit by the Kiev administration, unless there are rogue elements within the Ukraine administration that we don't know about, corruption and all this stuff, that's what they're branding it as, then obviously you're at war already. But according to a Telegram channel that is quite renowned in the space, in the OSINT space, in the office of the president of Ukraine, a discussion began on the issue of declaring war on Russia so that the Western partners could not avoid the Ukrainian topic, as if $150 billion in aid can be construed as avoiding something. I'm not sure how that works. The interlocutor explained to the channel that this move is the last step of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to raise the stakes in the escalation of the conflict, and it could be taken as a response from Kiev to Western pressure. Zelensky's office expects that if war is declared on Russia, U.S. President Biden will no longer be able to reduce financial and military assistance to Ukraine before the start of his presidential campaign. So, you know, that's how it goes. Guys, we have Victoria Nuland, the Lizard Queen herself, insisting that it's looking like, what is she saying? She's saying that...
helping Ukraine
let's just...
And
I know you guys love to listen to her.
Well, thank you, Natalia. I think we are looking at this on 3 axes, if you will. The first is obviously the battlefield. So making that progress so that Russia first cannot advance itself, but also can see the human cost to its own forces, its own economy, and helping Ukraine get to that point and have what it needs to be able to put some of Russia's most precious assets at risk. And that is one way to make them think harder about whether continuing on the battlefield or being willing to talk is in their better interest. So that's one.
Being willing to talk. I think the Russians have been willing to talk. As far as I know, you could tell that she's getting nervous. You can tell just by the looks of her in this video that, you know, usually she looks pretty calm and collected, because I think they had a plan initially that Russia would break by now, and Russia hasn't broken. And I'm not pro-Russia. I know there's some of you morons out there who just love to believe that I'm a pro-Russian shill. I'm a Russian propagandist, which is absolutely insane. I criticize the Russian bros all the time. Anyways, she seems to be a lot more concerned right now, but understand what she's saying here. She's talking about taking out some of those Russian assets. She's green-lighting Ukraine to utilize these weapon systems in Russia. Anthony Blinken has said the same thing. It's up to them what they do with all this military equipment that we're giving them that is going to be capable of targeting Russian territory, like the ATACMS and cluster bombs and whatever else. And now these drones, and everybody knows that the U.S. is obviously helping them build drones that are probably attacking Moscow and deeper inside of Russia all the way up to St. Petersburg. So yeah, Victoria Nuland, she's basically saying that, yep, the Ukraine has the green light to attack Russia. And this was another interesting exchange.
Now, in the midst of the
Baerbock and her Ukrainian counterpart, she is the, what is she for Germany? Not their foreign minister. I think she's a member of their party. But anyway, she is involved in the delivery of weapons to Ukraine. I'm not really sure what her role is or what his role is. I think they're on the same level in terms of what the role, the duty that they perform in their administration. Let's just hear what they have to say, okay? And this will speak for itself.
Do you feel that you could, or do you wish for more support from your Western allies with regard to, say, Taurus and also
Taurus.
F-16? Do you think it should all be quicker and faster?
Well, first, if the translation was correct, and I know that the interpreter is very professional, you asked Annalena whether she gave me any hope about Taurus.
Annalena Baerbock.
No, I wouldn't say that Annalena went beyond the official position of the German government, but you will do it anyway. It's just a matter of time, and I don't understand why.
He's saying you will do it anyways, as in they will give us the Taurus missile, long-range missile that has a 500-kilometer range eventually, regardless of what she says, even though she didn't officially go against the narrative that, no, they're not ready to do it yet. He's basically saying that they will do it. And you could tell almost by her body language, it almost seems like this guy is the one who's calling the shots, because I think he kind of is, right? This guy here. Because, he's the one who is being given the license to do this by the United States, and Germany is the United States bitch, let's face it, with respect to all that stuff that happened in Nord Stream. So you can see, the power dynamics in this relationship here.
We're wasting time. And we could have achieved more and save more lives of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians if we already had Taurus. And all we are asking we are telling the German government, we respect your discussions, we respect your...
We are telling. See, he first said asking, but then he said, oh yeah, we're in charge. We are telling the German government that you're going to give us these Taurus missiles, whether you like it or not. Whenever you get the call from Sleepy Joe, that's when you're going to do it. So yeah, this looks like fireworks, but it's actually incendiary munitions. This is an interesting one. Why do you always put weird music to these kind of things? Anyways, this is U.S. national median rent versus annual household income. The blue line is household income. The red line is rent price. You can see they've somewhat diverged after 1987. Not looking good. This is why there's going to be riots in the streets. This is why James Rawls bugged the hell out a long time ago because he doesn't want to be in the inner cities when the whole thing collapses. Guys, it's not looking good. We got, what are we at? 2002, 2013. Holy shmite. Look at this. And in Canada, it's actually a lot worse. In Canada, it's about 3 times as worse. The cost of living here is just, it's insane. What else do we got? I think that's about it. This was, if any of you guys are questioning whether or not the Royal Air Force is going to be present in the Black Sea, this is footage that was taken, I think this was a few months ago. The Royal Air Force, one of their reconnaissance planes, being escorted by 2 Typhoon jets. Those same planes are now going to be there doing enforcement operations, and which is effectively like a no-fly zone, sort of. So it's crazy, man. We're living in crazy, crazy times. And the smoke has abated for now, but it is coming back very soon because of the record temperatures here that are persisting. The fires just keep on raging. They're going to rage into October. This is crazy. Guys, stay prepped, and want to give you a heads up. My main man, Steve Syros, the guy that's been supplying all the nuclear submariners and all the bigwigs who have their bunkers and all the celebrities who want to stock their pantries. He's been supplying them all with food, and he wants to supply the civilians with it as well. Unfortunately, the price of food is going up, I think 10 to 15% on many of his varieties. I was able to get him to postpone that until, I think it is Monday, the Monday coming up. So you have until Monday to get 15% off wholesale freeze-dried food. You can get some Canadian bacon, and this is an American company, just so you know. You can get some boneless pork chops. You can get some, what do we got here? Freeze-dried meatballs. And they got hundreds of different varieties, high-quality stuff, only big sizes because they have the whole proprietary freeze-dry method that only they do that allows them to freeze-dry much larger items. So go and check that out where you can. And we're actually going to have him back on the channel to talk a little bit about the state of the industry and what he is seeing, because this is one of the canaries in the coal mine, is when these wholesale food producers are getting a lot of government contracts. And of course, he can't, tell us all of the details for obvious reasons, but he can share a little bit with respect to maybe what the current state of the economy is in around food prices and what sort of demand that he's seeing right now. And I'm presuming that it's pretty high as a result of all the war stuff that we're seeing around the world. So go and capitalize on that while you still can. The prices are going up, and they're only going to keep going up for the foreseeable future until this situation that we find ourselves in gets resolved, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.